Criminals are taking advantage of irresponsible American gun laws and their weak border enforcement to bring illegal guns into Canada. Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children.
Marcus Criminal Code Refining gave a press conference recently where he decided to address Canadians' fears about perceived rampant crime in all of Canada. Now, realistically, politicians have to say that they're going to address crime directly because voters in general are kind of dumb. Not you watch my videos, but a big chunk of everyone else. In fact, I saw something a while ago that suggested that they found that in people who vote right-wing, their fear centers of their brain tend to be larger, more active, which is why they respond so well to people ripping them off and claiming that everyone else is trying to rip them off and that they only need to trust the safe grifters who are on their side. Realistically, politicians are, at the end of the day, lawmakers. So it's not out of school for Mark to be talking about reforming some of Canada's criminal laws. Though I did ask a lawyer who generally doesn't ignore my text messages about the plans to shift the burden of proof from the accused to prove that they are safe to be released on bail away from the Crown being responsible for doing that. And her response was, I don't think the Supreme Court of Canada will like that very much. Realistically, in terms of the massive auto theft rings, Canada should be penalizing car makers for making their ignition systems so vulnerable that it's easier to use a stolen Kia than it is to use a stolen iPhone 6S. Car prices have gone through the roof in the last few years, and forgive me for not being much of a car chicken, but it seems like most of the innovation in the industry has been centered around ensuring that my eyes are damaged at night by LEDs brighter than the sun, always pointed directly at my eyeballs. Why do you need to burn my retinas when we're in the middle of the city under streetlight? Look, I want to be fair. A lot of the speech in terms of vibes was excellent, though some of it made me a bit worried. For example, they want to make it easier for law enforcement to open packages that are being shipped by Canada Post if they think there's contraband. The problem for me, though, is I order contraband through the mail because the Liberals haven't gotten around to having any valid legal way of getting naturally occurring psilocybin. So I have to order it through the mail. I freely talk about it because everyone knows that it's only illegal because in the 70s it was really easy to get votes by kicking hippies. I use it for medicinal purposes. I use it to treat my PTSD, never working in a church again, and I use it to treat incredibly painful migraines that I get every time I am exposed to tiny amounts of perfume, like amounts that you would not even be able to smell. Like, are you a woman who has shampooed and conditioned her hair within the last few days? Yeah, I can't be in a room alone with you. You're not safe for me. In those cases where I'm exposed, the best case scenario is extreme pain and inability to think straight. Not that I ever think that straight. Or be happy until the next morning, assuming that I can sleep. Worst cases, I'm completely overwhelmed by emotions that are out of context and I have no control over. I may feel like a 5-year-old who's been scolded and I may feel worthless. I may phone up my parents and say, hey, somebody needs to come and drive my car home because I feel like Gumby, and then giggle while also being in pain a lot. I have occasionally experienced complete unbridled anger, and honestly, I'm very scared that at some point when exposed, I may be a danger to myself or others because someone else has chosen to chemically prevent me from continuing to be me until it wears off. It's not fun. It's honestly terrifying. And I'm very worried that at some point, when exposed, I will do something illegal if I can't treat myself. And then you may never see another one of my videos because if you were in a jury, would you believe someone who said, Your Honor, perfume made me do it? If I didn't have this condition, I wouldn't. So I do appreciate that the government is expected to refine the criminal code, and I appreciate how Carney was able to acknowledge that there are problems with crime in Canada outside of the unique factors that have contributed to downtown Vancouver becoming the Disneyland of detaching from reality. If protections on what is shipped via Canada Post are lowered, I hope it is done with a very narrow mandate, but in my experience when law enforcement asks the government to do something, they generally are not looking to give law enforcement a harder time going after the criminals they want, and the next government may decide, yeah, we want to kick hippies again, and chickens. Anyway, the tone of the speech otherwise was good. You might want to check it out on CPAC and watch the whole thing. I was impressed by the way that he attached anti-Semitism and Islamophobia at the hip, where one was always with the other, which is pretty expedient in this political climate, given that all hate crime is bad. But at the same time, all hate crime is bad. Anyway, I'll leave you with this good little bit at the end of the speech. I enjoyed it, but again, I'm a little worried about how it might affect me specifically.
Canadians believe, in fact, our country is founded on peace, order, and security. Its promotion is the core responsibility of good government. My government will do its utmost to fulfill that mission. But ultimately, safe communities come from within, from who we are and how we treat each other. It's not the Canadian way to stoke fear, anger, and division. It's not the Canadian way to point fingers at each other. The Canadian way, our way, is to come together, to solve problems and to look out for each other. That's how we build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. That's how we make Canada secure. And that's how we will make Canada strong.